Welcome back to my continued lore series. Today we're looking at Pewter City after leaving the Viridian Forest. You'll note that there's a sign. Doesn't really explain anything outside of being able to switch Pokemon in and out and all Pokemon getting experience even if they don't do anything. Moving to a house, a person explains to us that it's not a surefire thing that capturing a Pokemon when they are wounded helps out, or if they're frozen, asleep, or if they have some type of status condition, it will assist in the capturing. And when in reality it doesn't. There's an advanced mathematical formula, but because of Gen 1's mechanics, catching Pokemon is almost utterly broken. Great Balls later on in the series, step up from Pokeballs, are much better than Ultra Balls, which are supposed to be a step up from Great Balls. And the Master Ball does have a chance to fail, a Pokeball that can capture 100% of the time. Nevertheless, it still helps out if you do some way, shape, or form some type of damage to the Pokemon. It's just not so much as you might have originally thought. Talking to the other gentleman in the house, he explains that Pokemon can learn new techniques as they grow, but some techniques must be taught by a trainer. He is insinuating that there are technical moves out there that you will have to teach the Pokemon that they will never learn on their own. A technical move we will get in this episode would be Bide from Brock, which we will obtain later after defeating him. Moving further into the city, we find a giant open garden, and the guy says, "Psst, do you know what I'm doing?" You can answer yes or no. If you answer no, he explains that he's spraying Repel to keep Pokemon out of his garden. If you answer yes, he says, "That's right, hard work." And then we get an explanation to what this place is. Pewter City, the stone gray city. Which is hilarious if you really think about it, because if you look at the color scheme right here, it's not stone gray. Yes, if you were playing this on a monochrome Game Boy, it might be stone gray, but currently it is not. So it's kind of ironic, because this does have the capabilities of making it a stone gray city, but it is more of a greenish type of city. Pewter itself is a malleable metal alloy. It's traditionally composed from 85 to 99% tin, mixed with around 5 to 10% antimony, copper, bismuth, sometimes silver. It's a mixture, it's an alloy. People make things out of it. You can melt it and make it into bracelets, jewelry. It's not exactly that valuable, but it is useful. One of the first recovered pieces of pewter came from an Egyptian tomb in 1450 BC, but a lot of people and a lot of historians speculate that it was being used from the 12th century to the 15th century. So this city itself is named after that metal alloy, if you didn't know. Moving to the top, there's a notice. Thieves have been stealing Pokemon fossils at Mount Moon. Please call Pewter Police with any info. I find this to be very hilarious because there are no Pewter City police. If you look around, there's literally only one guy in a somewhat business suit attire in the Pokemon Center, and he's on the phone about thieves at Mount Moon. He's not exactly a police officer. There's no police HQ, there's no jail, there's no prison, nothing. So I'm not exactly sure who we call. Also, we don't have a phone. There's also no phones in the Pokemon Centers. However, there are phones in the anime and in the first episode, so I think we were supposed to infer that they were there, we just never used them. Very strange, since this game is inspired from Earthbound, which did have a phone, and a portable phone as well. So, not sure if they didn't have time to include it or not, or it got cut, or they just didn't think about it, or it wasn't a big thing, but it's funny that the sign points that out. If we try to continue towards the pathway without doing everything in the town, we are greeted by a gentleman who explains that Brock is looking for new challengers. Not really sure why I would listen to this random kid, but if you attempt to leave, he will just force you into this encounter here, which will drive you all the way to the Pokemon Gym. If you have the right stuff, you can go take on Brock. Or if you don't, you can anyways and lose. The guy leaves, but then if you were paying attention and you were watching closely, there's fence posts in the way. Where did he go? Nevertheless, he's not here anymore. He's gone. Moving right along, we can look at the sign, and it's Pewter City Gym, the rock-solid Pokemon trainer, which is nice. We already knew that, though. And we talked to this lovely young lady who explains that Clefairy may have appeared after the Moonstone fell on Mount Moon, which infers that Clefairy is an alien. In a later episode, this is explained, where Jigglypuff confront Clefairy over Clefairy stealing multiple items, and it is exposed that Clefairy are aliens trying to return to the moon. In the earlier anime series, there's a scientist who speculate that aliens and Clefairy are one and the same, and that all Pokemon may have came from space at some point in time. We do know this now because there's Pokemon like Deoxys, and there's Pokedex entries that do explain this, but early in the game it was just speculation. Clefairy are indeed some type of alien Pokemon, and they do wish to return home. Continuing our guide, if you go up north, there's this blank area that you can just walk into. Pressing A on every square looking for hidden items will reveal nothing. There is nothing here, and there's no reason for this to exist. I would speculate and surmise that there was supposed to be something put here, but they once again ran out of time, data, or they were constrained to what they could actually fit into this area. Not sure why this exists, but it does. If we continue to the right, we can find a house up on the north right portion, where we have a trainer and a Nidoran, and he's trying to teach his Nidoran to sit. Nidoran replies with Bow Wow, which is funny, because I always thought Pokemon could only say their names. And then this gentleman explains to us that outsider Pokemon are Pokemon that you get in trades. They grow fast, but they ignore unskilled trainers, and you need badges to control them. Something very important for the future. If you talk to this gentleman outside the Pokemart, and you answer that you did check out the museum, he explains how awesome those fossils were, and if you don't, he will take you to the museum himself. Once again, a guided tour that you have no control over. It's right here, you have to pay to get in, but it's worth it. So that's nice. And then he takes off just like the other one did. Checking out the sign, you can see that it's the Pewter Museum of Science. We can find that it actually costs us 50 Poké-Dollars for a ticket. You can say yes and pay it. It's not that much money. It's really your choice. So he thanks you for your money, and you're in the museum, which is nice. Talking to the gentleman, he explains that this is a magnificent fossil, and looking at the fossil yourself, you can see that it's actually an Aerodactyl fossil, a primitive and rare Pokemon. We haven't seen this Pokemon yet. Through a strange glitch called Missing No, you can actually encounter these fossils as real Pokemon and capture them and use them, though they are heavily glitched. Down below there's a Kabutops fossil, and it is explained that, once again, it is indeed a Kabutops fossil, a primitive and rare Pokemon, another Pokemon we have yet to encounter. Heading upstairs is the Space Division. People are talking about moonstones, and of course there is a piece of a moonstone. It's a meteorite, so it came from space, so it belongs in the Space Division. July 20th, 1969, the first lunar landing. Absolutely. I bought a color TV just to watch it. So I looked into the 1969 lunar landing, and it turns out that Apollo 11 was one of them that actually was the first one to land. This is a pretty interesting bit of history that they decided to throw into this. I'm not entirely sure why they included this in the Pokemon other than to tie it together with the meteorites and the moon and the moonstone. So it's very strange that this is exactly where this comes from. Armstrong became the first person to step on the lunar surface 6 hours and 39 minutes later after the Apollo lunar module Eagle on July 20th, 1969. It was a massive thing for America because there was a giant space race between America and Russia that was taking place, and whoever went up there first was apparently the winner. Nowadays we can look back and kind of laugh at it, but it was a huge thing back then, and if we hadn't made it to the moon today, it probably still would be a huge thing. So continuing on, we can take a look and talk to other people. This gentleman informs us that they have a space exhibit now. That's nice, but I don't know what it was before. Then we look over here, and they actually have a space shuttle here. Now, I believe this to be a mock space shuttle, because a real space shuttle would have been much, much bigger, but this is Pokemon, and the proportions aren't exactly accurate. But this is Space Shuttle Columbia, and Space Shuttle Columbia was the first space-rated orbiter, NASA's Space Shuttle fleet. The Space Shuttle Columbia actually, on February 1st, 2003, ended its 28th mission by killing all of its crew members, disintegrating during a re-entry mission, which is very, very tragic. Yes, the Space Shuttle Columbia no longer exists because of its own destruction. So not sure if the developers would have put it in here knowing that that would have been the end result of Space Shuttle Columbia, but that is what ended up happening to it. Going south, we can talk to this little girl and the gentleman, and she says she wants a Pikachu. It's so cute, and she asked her daddy to catch her one. But despite even having a Pikachu, you can't trade it to them or give it to either one of them, which I always found to be strange. Why would they just be up here asking for a Pikachu? It might even motivate the player to go back to the Viridian Forest and attempt to capture one. Going back downstairs, you can look over and you can see that there's a section that you can't actually get to, and going outside and around, this is how you would get to the section, but there's no real way to get over there. There seems to be a bush in the way. Looking around and attempting to get through, there's definitely no way to get there now, and you'll have to return when you get the HM cut later. This is for a quest much later in the game, and requires you to be almost finished with the game to complete it. So if we return here, we can get through the door in the back, and we can talk to the scientists here. And they explain that they're proud of two very rare Pokemon fossils that they recovered, obviously the Aerodactyl and Kabutops. If you talk to the guy at the counter, he says you can't sneak in, and then asks you if you know what amber is. You can answer yes or no. If you answer no, he explains that amber is fossilized tree sap. And then you can talk to him and say yes and get more information on him. He states that there's a lab somewhere trying to resurrect ancient Pokemon from amber. This is on Cinnabar Island. This is where this quest will take us. This guy wants us to be quiet, and he explains that amber has some type of Pokemon DNA in it, and he wants these Pokemon to be resurrected. But his colleagues ignore him, so he asks you a favor to take this amber to the Pokemon lab. I just want to explain that a scientist in a science museum is handing some prehistoric, very important stuff to a kid, and wants him to go on this quest. Alright, you can go back to the Pokemart, buy a few things, and make sure you're squared away. But if you happen to spend all of your money at the Pokemart, you may not have enough money to actually get into the museum itself if you didn't have a chance to visit it. If you attempt to continue to go in without money, thinking that they'll somehow let you in, I assure you they won't. I've attempted this multiple times and they would not let me in. So be careful about spending your money if you happen to want to see the museum. Now, the museum itself is not a critical part of the game. You literally get nothing from going in, paying the money, other than the loss of 50 Pokédollars. So if you don't actually go and visit the museum now, you're not losing anything. There's no events that get triggered. There's nothing that gets frocked off. Nothing. It's just a little bit of lore and something nice to look at. You get to actually see what a Kabutops skeleton would look like and an Aerodactyl skeleton would look like. Despite the number of times and the speed up that I've done here to show you, you cannot get in if you don't have money, unlike the Safari Zone in Pewter City. Returning back to the Pokemart, we can talk to a few people, and they just have some trivial things, saying that it's good to race Pokemon if you're very diligent about it. And then a shady old guy sold this man a weak fish Pokemon, and it cost him $500. He is obviously referring to the Magikarp salesman, which appeared in an anime episode where he attempted to sell James a Magikarp in a golden Magikarp Pokeball. He lied to James, expressing that these fish were worth something, but they are completely worthless. They can't even be eaten, which led James to be quite upset that he spent the last of his salary on this fish Pokemon.
But you don't understand. Magikarp is a gold mine. Even its Pokeball is solid gold.
It's just gold-plated!
Oh!
In fact, Magikarp didn't even save Team Rocket's life, and they almost drowned when the St. Anne actually went down.
Lucky for us, I bought this, even if it cost next month's salary.
Later on, you'll be given the opportunity to buy Magikarp, which is a very good thing to do this early in the game, because Magikarp can evolve into Gyarados, an extremely powerful Pokemon. Even in this game, it's considered to be one of the most OP Pokemon. For now, just know that Magikarp does evolve into something absolutely amazing at level 20. Really, that's the extent of Pewter City. Going into the Pokemon Center, we can talk to a guy who gets very sleepy when Jigglypuff sings. He's snoring away. And if you actually talk to Jigglypuff, Jigglypuff will sing for you. It doesn't do anything in this game, but if you happen to have had Pokemon Yellow, Pikachu would be asleep, and you could walk away from Pikachu. One of the rare opportunities where you get to walk around without Pikachu following you if you have it, and it's where you're not going to be followed by Pikachu. It's strange, and Pikachu gets sleepy, and if you don't wake up Pikachu and leave the Pokemon Center, Pikachu's not exactly happy with you. Later on, you'll be able to acquire a Jigglypuff on the route coming up. Talking to this gentleman in the Pokemon Center, he explains that Team Rocket is in Mount Moon, and he tells you to leave because he's on the phone. We can return to the Pokemon Gym, the rock-solid Pokemon trainer Brock. Now, this Brock is different from the one in the anime, but they are designed holistically to be the same. This Brock happens to be a rock-type trainer who is one of the first trainers you have to battle in order to get all the badges to battle the Elite Four. Brock is a very serious Pokemon trainer, as he is a gym leader and should be taken very, very seriously. But in the anime, he is also a gym leader, but the story evolves and has Brock following Ash around on his adventures. It's not exactly the same because this Brock doesn't follow the trainer Red or whoever you named him around. He doesn't assist you, he doesn't aid you. Going into the gym, we get our first experience of real serious Pokemon trainers. Looking at the statue, it is explained that the only winning trainers here are blue. I'd just like to point out that the entirety of this existence of the gym here is dedicated only to one trainer beating Brock. Brock, who does not have the most powerful Pokemon in the world, has only been defeated by one Pokemon trainer. Do you guys see anything slightly wrong with this? Alright, I think it would have been better to just exclude that portion, but it's some interesting lore that every single gym you will go to, your rival will have beaten it before you get there. If you talk to the gentleman over here, he explains to you that he knows you have what it takes to become a Pokemon champ, but he's not a trainer, and he will explain to you what will take you to the top. He explains that your first Pokemon can be the one at the top, and it'll help by changing out Pokemon here and there so that you'll be more prepared for whatever Pokemon comes your way. And it's funny because if you say yes or no, he tells you anyways. There's a growing theory out there that this gentleman here that follows you around to every Pokemon gym happens to also be your father. Now, we as the players wouldn't know if he really is your father, but Red does comment that his father would like a sports game in the Celadon City department store, meaning that his father's likely still alive because of the way the sentence structure goes. And this might be the father, because there's really no other fathers within the game, or father types, that help Red out as much as this guy, for no good reason. There's no given reason why this guy is actually helping Red out wherever he goes to each and every Pokemon gym. Just food for thought, whether or not he's actually the dad has never been confirmed. If we go and challenge this trainer, we can see that we can actually step aside from him. But if you notice what he says in the beginning, he says you're light years away from facing Brock. Remember this, because at the end of the battle it will come into play. The trainer is a junior trainer, which means he's a step up from a lot of the other trainers you faced so far, and he has one Diglett as well as a Sandshrew. Now these are ground types, which is very strange, again, because this is supposed to be a rock type gym, but they're pretty easy to take on. If you have a Charmander, Ember works. If you have Squirtle or Bulbasaur, Vine Whip and Water Gun work great. The only problem you might encounter is Sand Attack, which might reduce your accuracy, but once again, if you have a decently trained starter, it won't be a problem. And then the trainer corrects himself that light years isn't time, but it measures distance instead. So you get your money, and then he explains that you're pretty hot, but not as hot as Brock. Going and talking to Brock, he explains that he's Brock, he's Pewter City's gym leader, and he believes in rock-hard defense and determination. He talks about being the gym leader of all rock types, wants you to show him your best. As a gym leader, I would expect no less. Seeing Brock, once again, he looks exactly like he would in the anime if he was 8-bit here, and he is. His first Pokemon will always be Geodude. Geodude only has Defense, Curl, and Tackle. So if you're able to use tactics like Growl, you can take him down with a Charmander starter. If you have a Squirtle or a Bulbasaur, you'll be able to destroy Geodude pretty easily. I'll go into Brock's Pokemon's lore in a later video because we will encounter them later on many times. But for now, just know that there are multiple tactics that you can take to take down Geodude and Onyx. By growling Geodude, you can reduce his attack power greatly, making it a lot easier for you to take him down with Charmander's Ember attack. But as I stated before, Bulbasaur and Squirtle's Water Gun will take these Pokemon down because they have a 2x weakness. Both ground and rock types are weak to water and grass types, making them easy pickings for the other two starters, but difficult for fire types as rock types resist fire attacks. But a couple embers will take him down because he has very low special defense. After taking a few tackle attacks and giving him a few embers, Geodude will be very low on HP, and you will be able to finish him off. But do be careful of critical hits. The next Pokemon Brock will send out will be, of course, Onyx. Onyx, being a giant rock snake, it looks very intimidating, but it has very low attack. Make sure to growl it, as it only has Tackle, Defense Curl, and Bide. Once again, Bide being a move that allows you to hit it several times, and then it takes all of the damage you gave it and unleashes it back onto you. This Pokemon has time to waste, so make sure to use stat moves, stat reducing or boosting moves when he uses Bide. Don't attack him. Once you have growled him down and he can't do that much damage, you can hit him with several Ember attacks if you've chosen Charmander to make the battle go much easier. You can always go the route of using Pidgey and Sand Attack and gambling whether or not he's actually going to hit you, or you can attempt to poison him with Nidorans, or you can use Squirtle and Bulbasaur. Once again, Vine Whip and Water Gun or Leech Seed work great. Brock will explain to you that he took you for granted, and as proof of your victory will give you a Boulder Badge. It apparently is supposed to increase your Pokemon's attack power. Whether it actually does that or not, I don't know. It does explain this to you, and it allows you to use a technique called Flash, but you won't get Flash till much later. Now, my Charmander happened to be level 16, and it evolves at this point in time. Make sure not to have multiple Pokemon evolve in one battle, or you'll have to level up one Pokemon again to have it evolve later. I now have Charmeleon, and I will get into Charmeleon's lore later. Brock is giving me the technique Bide. Bide is that technique I explained before, where it takes on several attacks from an enemy and returns all the damage back. It's probably one of the worst techniques in the game currently, because if you can outspeed enemies, you can likely feint them within 1 to 2 hits. Brock sends us to Cerulean City, so we should go heal our Pokemon once again. And once our Pokemon are healed, we can finish up any business we have in Pewter City here, and we can get back onto the route, and we can head towards Mount Moon, go through Mount Moon, and get to Cerulean City to tackle the second batch. Through this lore series, I hope I am going in depth enough. I appreciate all the given feedback, and people have asked me to go in depth more. I know I didn't really talk too much about the Pokemon in this episode, just due to the simple fact that there's not much to say about them. I have Charmeleon, a Geodude, and an Onyx to talk about, but I will talk about them in later episodes as we encounter Geodude and Onyx multiple times in later episodes, and there's really no point in going into them right now, as they were gym leader Pokemon. These Pokemon are interesting, and they do have a lot of lore associated with them, so I will speak on them at a later date, but everything else in the town I believe I covered pretty well. If you believe I missed something, I would greatly appreciate you leaving me a comment and letting me know and letting everyone else know. You can tell me if you enjoy this series with a like and a share, let other people know I exist, and I greatly appreciate you subscribing and coming back each week for more lore videos, Pokemon theories, and overall Pokemon content. Now, I've been your host, Protomario, I'm signing out. As always, good gaming, God bless, and I hope to see you back here next time, Pokemon Maniacs.